Why did I come back to this game? Uh, I don't know, really. I just, I just felt like having a good time bullying with friends and doing shit like that. I don't know why my mouse cursor is spinning like that, by the way. It started doing it as I was recording, so it's probably a recording glitch. So yeah, I'm back to Dead by Daylight. I'm back with this game. Uh, And if you really like, if you're asking me for hack videos, you're asking to the wrong place. I stopped playing good killers. I play shit killers now. I have fun playing the game for how garbage it is, basically. So yeah, I'm not really gonna do a huge video on how I came back or how I'm gonna record shit. I'm not gonna record anything because my PC can barely run the game right now because of how badly optimized it is. So if I start recording, it's gonna be terrible. But I can still record discussion videos, and I wanted to do an update for this tier list because I've decided to give a little categories for the tiers now, which I think represents a bit more of what I think. Also, I've played the newer killers, the killers I couldn't, I wasn't able to play, which are Legion, Plague, and the newly Ghostface now. So we're gonna have Ghostface on the tier list now. Uh, I will say though that my Ghostface placement is probably the most questionable one and the one I'm the most unsure about because he's still fairly recent and I didn't play him a whole lot. I played him like about 20 games, which is not a lot, but I'm pretty sure I'm starting to get a good idea of where I'm gonna put him. So usually I start with the best and go all the way to the worst because it's obvious who the best is, but I think I'm gonna do a change and go from bottom to top. So we're gonna start with the worst killer in the game. Where are you? Oh, there you are. We're not gonna play survivors, by the way, just using this one because this is the first one I found that had Ghostface in it. So yeah, Clown is still the worst killer in the game, unsurprisingly, because I mean he's just an M1 killer. Basically, Clown's power just will probably slow down survivors. I say probably because of how fucking bugged he is. He's such a buggy mess. Uh, if it does slow down the survivor, sure, you can try to anti-loop and shit, but it's, for one, it's not going to work on every loop. For two, it's not going to allow you to catch really them up if they know what they're doing. Basically, how you counter the clown, you just stand at a pallet and it can't do anything. The clown makes it so that they will drop the pallets faster because they can the pallets, but that's basically all his power does. He has no mobility, no way to chase faster other than what I just mentioned, no way to find really track. I mean, you can try to track with your balls, but it's not going to. It's really inconsistent and it's very clunky. Also, it's countered by Con Spirit, which you probably won't see, but it still exists. Uh, his add-ons don't really help him. He has Flask of Bleach, which is probably the only good add-on he has. And even then, I've got told that the Feather add-ons are better, which, funnily enough, were the worst add-ons for the Clown when he got released. But now, he's such a buggy mess. Like, he throws a bottle and slows himself down. We've got through this multiple times already. I've already explained why he's as low as he is. He wasn't the worst back when I first did the tier list, but times changed a whole lot since then. It's been almost a year now, and now the Clown is definitely the worst killer in the game. There's no doubt about it. He's hands down the worst fucking killer ever. Yeah, I think we've talked about the clown. So next up is gonna be the Wraith. He's not going to be the worst because worst and best have only one killer. I think the best killer in the game is very obvious, and the worst killer in the game is also very obvious. I think these two are pretty much, there's no question for me. I think they are definitely the best and the worst killer in the game. So yeah, sadly for the clown, even though I like him, he's very bad. So let's talk about the race now. In the low tier, we have the killers that barely have a power. Basically, Cloud doesn't really have a power. Wraith doesn't really have a power either, but it's going to do at least a couple things. First of all, he has a better mobility. He can move pretty fast while he's cloaked, especially with add-ons. With add-ons, the Wraith becomes somewhat decent. Without them, he's pretty useless. During a chase, he can try to body block you. It's not going to work very often, and also most survivors can just run away, find another pallet, because of how much you slow down when you uncloak. You become basically a slug. Uh, so he has pretty much no chase ability. He only has a mobility tool that may or may not give him a free hit sometimes because he doesn't have a terror radius. When he's cloaked, that is. But he's so slow and makes so many noises that most of the time they will just reach the pallet and you just become an M1 killer. He's pretty bad overall. His power is just moving around faster, and that's basically it. It really doesn't have much else. He may get a free hit, but not often. Another killer that I'm gonna place in the low tier is the Legion. I think the Legion is above the rate because he gets the first hit more consistently because he vaults pallets and windows while in Frenzy, but then he becomes literally an M1 killer. Legion is the most basic killer in the game. He just goes in Frenzy, hits you, gets the stun, then he chases you like an M1 killer. There's like nothing. There's no depth in Legion. You can try to body block while you're stunned, but that's only working against bad survivors because you're stunned for 5 seconds. Like, unless the survivor really wants to hug you and try to get past you, it's not going to work. They're just gonna run away and go find another pallet. There's there's just no depth in this character. There's no way you can really make him work. He's just going to get the first hit, maybe hit someone else if you're not spread out, which you should if you're facing Legion. Like, I can understand if he spreads out and gets multiple hits on the first frenzy he gets, but then you know it's Legion and you're like, okay, let's just spread out and screw over Legion. Uh, he's pretty much like the Wraith, an M1 killer, but he has at least somewhat of a power because he gets a first hit, which halves the chase, which is, it helps. It doesn't help a whole lot, but it does help. Um, Another thing about the Legion is that it can find people more easily than the Wraith. Like once you hit someone with Frenzy, you get the killer instant. You know the blood bubbles. For the people in your terror radius, that is, unless you're using iridescent button. Legion has more tools, I believe, than the Wraith to become a bit more powerful. I guess I mean he's not going to be ever powerful, but I don't know that's pretty much what happens with Legion. You just run around, you smack someone, and nothing really else happens. He's really basic. And yeah, yes, those are interchangeable. Just like every killer in the same tier can be interchanged. I just think Legion's better than Wraith because even though Wraith has a better mobility and better add-ons, the Legion is just more consistent. And I think having a better tracking and having the chase pretty much every time helps more than, trying to sneak up on people and having a better mobility. Now we're going to the D tier, the Punish tier. This is an interesting tier because those killers are not good at all. They're pretty bad. But the Punish tier has killers that if you fuck up versus them, you can fuck up your entire team. These killers have massive advantages when someone fucks up in the team, and one of them is Leatherface. when it comes down to Leatherface, if you are in a dead zone, Leatherface is just going to one-shot you with his chainsaw. And it's very hard to avoid. You can avoid it, but it's pretty hard. Uh, but survivors that know what they're doing makes Leatherface look an NM1 killer because he has no power. Basically, he's just going to go from pallet to pallet to pallet to pallet, and he's just never going to get a chainsaw off. The only times he may use his chainsaw is to break pallets faster, but you need to be already charged up, and the survivor needs to pretty much drop the pallet when you're charging your chainsaw, which is a mistake by itself. So like I said, he's a punish killer. When he gets you, he can just camp you, and there's nothing you can do about it. He punishes you for fucking you up, for getting downed. He punishes altruism. He is just the definition of a punish killer. If you don't fuck up, he's worthless. He's absolutely garbage. If you fuck up, he's going to get a pretty good advantage. Only on you though, because survivors can just let you get camp and just yeet out of there. But because he can secure the kills, because he has such a good punish, he's gonna be above these three, which are completely worthless. Next up is going to be the Trapper. I think, like, I used to think that Leatherface was a bit better than a Trapper. I changed my mind recently. I think they're fairly close, they're very interchangeable. The thing about the Trapper is that he has a more viable punish in my eyes. I think having traps around the map can be more unpredictable, a bit harder to counter. Even though he has more counterplay than Leatherface, he's the killer with the most amount of counterplay. You can watch him place the traps and know where they are. You can tell your survivor trend team where they are. You can disarm them. You can sabo them. You can dead out over them. The hitbox doesn't work sometimes, so you can just walk around them. There's so many things you can do with the traps that makes Trapper worthless. However, when the Trapper gets a snowball out of his traps due to altruism, it's fucking disgusting. It becomes very powerful. It's very impressive how much the game can turn around if one survivor fucks up against the Trapper. Um, so he's complete garbage. He's absolutely terrible because he wastes his time placing the traps, also getting all the traps all over scattered all over the map. He has so much counterplay, it doesn't even matter. He's one of the worst killers in the game. But the thing about him is that when you fuck up against the Trapper, you're going down. And basically why Vailu punish this much in the bad killer spots is because if you don't fuck up versus all of these killers, you win. And if you fuck up, well, these guys get better than these guys. So that's how I decide to rank them. Better than Leatherface because Leatherface will pretty much get one down and then camp you. Trapper can try to get multiple downs, and he has better add-ons than Leatherface. So Trapper, he's really bad, but he's still D tier. Like, D tier is still atrocious. Those killers are still horrible. But, you know, they can do something. The next one is going to surprise a few people. I think the Plague is D tier now. I used to say that the Plague was the second worst killer in the game. That was until I decided to play her, and now I'm kind of a Plague main right now. I'm more of a Trapper main, but I also play her quite a lot. I do enjoy the BM she does with the freaking puke, when you puke in their face when they're hooked. I like Corrupt Purge. I like using Corrupt Purge. I think it's fun to vomit on people and hear them scream. I like how different the reactions against her are. I like how people just you tear the survivor friend teams apart because one people decides to cleanse and everyone's just shit on him, or it's like, oh, we need to cleanse right now, but no, we shouldn't because she doesn't get a power. But it's like, no, we should cleanse because now she's getting the downs. She's gonna slug everyone. Plague is an interesting killer. She might rise in the future actually, because um, her punish is actually really strong. Like Corrupt Purge can do some huge damage if you decide to cleanse versus her at the wrong time. It's going to completely screw your entire team, more so than the Trapper does. Another thing that the Plague has is the same as Leatherface. In dead zones, she's absolutely deadly. She's going to get you to broken and then smack you down. You don't get any speed boost from getting broken, so she's just still right behind you. She's a 115 killer with a projectile. It's pretty oppressive when you think about it, but it's not that impressive behavior. There was no reason to make her this bad because she has a lot of counterplay. You can also just not cleanse, like a lot of people say, but I don't think that's the best counter. I think the best counter is to cleanse when she starts getting pressure. If you never cleanse, everyone is one shot, nobody gets adrenaline, and she can pretty much start a slug game. Sure, that means Survivor fucking up for her to get down because she's an M1 killer at this point. But like I said, she's pretty deadly in dead zones. So she's gonna try to create those dead zones and maybe get a 3 gen. And if she gets a 3 gen, it becomes pretty cancer. Her 3 gen is pretty strong. Her basement game is pretty strong when she has Corrupt Purge. So for these reasons, I think she's a punish killer. I think she punishes survivors that fuck up versus her. I think she's still very bad. But, and for all the reason I said before, she slows herself 3 times when she charges, when she's puking, and after puking. And she also slows down if she cancels the puke. Um, but I think she's better than I thought. I don't think she's good, but I don't think she's one of the worst killers in the game. Next up is the new guy. He's the last killer in the D tier. Ghostface is interesting. He's very he's a very hit or miss killer. Basically, there are games with Ghostface where you feel like you're almost as strong as Myers. You get those punishes, you get the momentum, you get the snowball because you get those one shots, you sneak on them, you grab them off gens, and there are games that it feels like Clown, that it has no power because people reveal you every time and you just become an M1 killer with no terror radius. Um, it becomes completely worthless and it feels very, very weak. So I came to the conclusion that the games where Ghostface is very oppressive and very strong is because the survivors are bad, which means that Ghostface is a punish killer. When he gets his snowball going versus bad survivors, it feels very strong, and it feels pretty much almost as good as Myers over here. But he has a lot of counterplay, and you can really screw Ghostface over by completely revealing him over and over, or also just using Object of Obsession. That's also another freaking way to destroy him. Um, I think he's a punish killer. I don't think he's really good. I think he's pretty bad. Uh, it's pretty cool that he has this old stealth with the crouch and the no-terror radius, kind of like the pig, but he moves faster and he can stalk. But the thing is, it doesn't have any chase ability like the pig. He doesn't have any stall like the pig, and his all stalk thing is not as good as Myers because he can lose his power, unlike Myers. There are situations that he can't stalk, unlike Myers, and his snowball is not nearly as deadly as Myers. As you can see, he's a mix of Myers and Pig, but he's a worse version of both because it doesn't have the strengths that the others have. Like Myers is this whole stealthy snowball killer. Ghostface is that too, but he has moments that he doesn't have a power anymore. He can't one-shot the entire team. He needs to stalk every single one of them or bring them to 99 and never down them, because if you down them, you lose the progress. Uh, it's pretty hard to set up. And like Pig, he doesn't have the ambush attack, which helps quite a bit in chase when you know how to use it. And it doesn't have the stall, which is still orangey, but it's still a stall. So for these reasons, I think Ghostface is pretty bad. I don't think he's horrible. He might go to C tier. I don't know. That's where I used to put him, but since the latest fix for Ghostface, now he's really easy to reveal, so I just decided to put him in D tier. We'll see in the future. Like I said, he's the one I'm the least sure about. Okay, that's a lot of talking. Let me just catch my breath. Okay, let's go. Next killer, Doctor. Let's go. So mid tier. Mid tier are the killers that are pretty meh. They're pretty mediocre. They can do stuff sometimes. Sometimes, like I said, they don't 100% rely on survivors fucking up. So there's parts of your own skill that starts to matter with those. It just begins to matter pretty much. Um, Doctor over here is a very difficult killer to play because of the timing of his shock and how much he has to juggle with the survivors. He's kind of like Freddy in a way because he needs to juggle the people, but way worse because he doesn't really juggle them nearly as well. He also doesn't have a better tracking. He also can do stuff in chase, but it's very inconsistent. It's very difficult to pull off. His add-ons work. They're pretty good. The multi-electrode is, in my opinion, a must if you want to use a shock in a chase. Um, it can work. It can. It's just that it's pretty hard to make him work. He's pretty inconsistent. But because the skill is there, because he has a lot of learning curve, because it matters, because it does something, and it is not 100% a punish killer, he's in the mid tier. He's not quite punish because he doesn't really rely on the punish. He relies more on how much the survivors let you molest them, which you would say it's a mistake, but at the same time, it's not a mistake like saying, you fuck up against in a chase and you just get insta down like Leatherface does. Doctor is more like a team thing. Like if you don't do the gens fast enough, it becomes pretty much a threat. If you don't get the chase around the teams enough, he's going to pretty much get maybe a slug game because he's pretty decent at slug game if he gets that going. He's a pretty complicated killer. I think he's the worst killer in the C tier though. Next killer is going to be the Pig. I think Pig and Doctor are pretty close. They're pretty much the stall killers that are worse than Freddy. That's pretty much how I figured them out. At least for now, because the Freddy rework is still not there. But when it's gonna be there, Freddy, I feel like he's going to drop quite a bit. We're gonna talk about that in part 4. So, Pig. Pig is pretty inconsistent. Our stall is very much RNG. However, what is consistent with her is how much her stealth ability allows her to get easy free hits. Sure, she's pretty slow, and sure, you need to get close to them, then uncrouch and try. You can try to grab them off the gen if they're really bad. That's gonna work, but otherwise, you will most likely get a free hit, which helps quite a bit. The ambush attack is pretty interesting in chase. It does work pretty well most of the time. If you see the survivors running away, you can just uncrouch. You can make them run away from the worst loops in this way. It's pretty decent. My point though is that in the ambush is really worthless in buildings, which are the worst loops in the game. So she becomes an M1 killer in those buildings. While the doctor can stop the buildings with the shock, at least most of them, not like Haddonfield, stuff like that, because Haddonfield is very fun, guys, right? Sure, you guys are having a lot of fun on that map. The Pig has also some of the worst add-ons in the game. I don't think she has a whole lot of good add-ons. I usually use the last will and the videotape. Uh, she doesn't really have a whole lot, but you know, if you get skilled with her, you get results. She's pretty decent. I just feel like she's kind of mediocre because she's pretty inconsistent and her stall is not as good as Freddy. Her chase is, it can work, but sometimes it doesn't. It's pretty weird. She's kind of like Doctor in that sense that she's pretty inconsistent too. And the next killer is maybe going to shock you, but I'm putting the Huntress up. Not there. Not going to exaggerate. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. The thing about the Huntress is that, like I said it before, she's very strong. Like, when you know how to play the Huntress, she becomes scary as fuck. Her hatchets can do massive amounts of damage at very far range. She's pretty dangerous. The problem with the Huntress is really how the game works. She's a range killer in a game that isn't made for range killers. Pretty much the maps completely destroy her. There's not a whole lot of maps that are good for the Huntress. I can only count one, and that is Blood Lodge. I don't think there's a whole lot of good maps for Huntress. I think there's maps that she doesn't get cucked too hard, and there's maps that are just horrible, and then you have the maps that you're better off DCing. And I don't really value that in a killer. Basically, if you have the urge to DC because you get a bad map, I don't think that puts you in the high tier. Like, I wanted to put her in the I tier because I think she's pretty, very, very strong when learned, and she is very scary. But the problem really comes down to the maps and how much you can fuck with the Huntress. Basically, if you have a tall loop against the Huntress and you know how she works, you can make her become the worst killer in the game. Because a Huntress without hatchets is the fucking worst thing ever. A 110 killer that is just M1. It's horrible. I'm not talking about the Shack, I'm talking mostly about Jungle Gyms. Jungle Gyms are really horrible as the Huntress. There's not a whole lot you can do versus them. Also, the Cow Tree. I saw what a couple of Huntress throw hatches over them, but if you know that you can do that, you can counter it. It's not that bad. You just need to look at where she's going, what she's doing. It's not that difficult. If you know how to bully a Huntress, you're gonna have a good time because she's gonna become very bad very quick. But because she has that huge potential, because she's very, very skillful killer, I will put her in the C tier above these two because I believe she's more consistent than these two because she relies more on her skill level than RNG or being a very inconsistent killer in general, you know. Next up, Freddy, the last killer in the C tier. Freddy, uh, I used to say, I think he's close to high tier, but the problem with Freddy is how much he gets cut hard by the freaking meta perks. Adrenaline completely destroys him. Borrow time is pretty hard and harsh against him. Deliverance is just a free win versus him. He has a lot of problems with those perks. He has a lot of problems. I agree that Freddy has a lot of problems. What I don't agree is that saying that he has nothing. That's not true. Freddy is a pretty solid staller. He's pretty much the best staller in the game. We covered that already though. The thing about Freddy, you remember how much he can stall the game, how much I said that he has amazing add-ons, how much he has amazing perk diversity, is very versatile, is a very unpredictable killer. Uh, Basically, if you want to see some good Freddy gameplay, just go watch Ken game. I think you'll be very well pleased. Ken game is probably the best killer I know. Like, a lot of people are going to point out all the streamers in the world, but they're just famous for the sake of being famous. I don't think they're that amazing, at least most of them. Like, I think Tofu, for example, is a pretty good hillbilly. I think Fungoose is a pretty good killer in general. But, stuff like that. But I think Ken Gang is the best killer I know. So, if you want some good Freddy shit, you can look it up. He is pretty fucking good at Freddy. It doesn't really play him anymore, but you can still watch his older videos, they're still relevant. The problem though is that Freddy's gonna get reworked, and he's gonna become really, really bad. And that's a topic for the next video, because the rework's probably gonna be there in the next video. And yeah, we're gonna cover that along with the new killer that's gonna come, because I don't think I'm gonna do an update until we get another killer. I like to do it once we get a new killer every time. Like I started with Legion, then I did it with Plague got released, and now I'm doing it with Ghostface, you know? Um, so now we're moving to high tier. The difference between high tier and mid tier is how much they can turn the game around. Basically, these killers are pretty good at what they're doing. They're Some are kind of inconsistent at the lower. The others get cut pretty hard by the meta. But these two that are going to be high tier are very strong. I think these killers have a very, very good chance of killing people. I think one of them, I think, is very underrated. The other one is extremely overrated. People that know me know now the two killers that I put there. I think they're interchangeable, so bear with me because number 5 is very, very questionable. You guys are not going to agree with me, but I think Spirit is number 5. I do not think Spirit is number 4 or number 3 or fucking number 2. Number 2 is just fucking idiots. Spirit. What can I say about the Spirit? I think Spirit is a pretty basic killer when you think about it. She's pretty much a killer that is going to have a good mobility, that is going to have some chasing tools with her power. She can come at you pretty fast. You won't probably won't see her coming. I think she's a killer that has amazing add-ons. Sounds familiar, right? Does that really sound familiar here? I don't know who I'm talking about, guys. A killer with high mobility and a power that works in the chase and can be very oppressive. You know, that's pretty similar. Now, what does she have that this one mysterious killer doesn't have? Or oh no, when I said what does this mysterious killer has that she doesn't have? Sorry. She has a cooldown that makes her power unusable for a long time. She's 110, which makes her completely useless in chase if she fucks up. If you fuck up as Spirit, you get punished so hard. You get more punished than as Nurse. Your punish is almost as high as the Hag if you fuck up. Now, what the thing about her though is that her power having to recharge means that her snowball gets harshly affected. Basically, she gets someone with her power, but she can't slug them because she needs her power to recharge. So because if she fights someone else, she can't chase them. She's an M1 killer, a 110 M1 killer that needs to wait her power to recharge. That's too much waiting. So she has to hook the survivor and let the other one get away. You see what I mean right here? That allows the survivor to get away, to hide and do generators. Basically, you don't have the slug game that the killers above her have. The slug game is extremely important because that allows you to snowball and get quick downs. You put pressure. That hard. That the fact that she cannot do that hurts her pressure extremely. Now, yes, she's fucking broken with anal beads or prayer beads if you like them more, but I like to call them anal beads because fuck that add-on. Uh, yes, she's pretty oppressive with that add-on. Yes, she's pretty fucking crazy with Mother Dollar Ring. Yes, her add-ons are stupid, but they're very rare. They're hard to get. You cannot really physically farm them very easily. She's kinda like in that middle ground. It's really hard for me to put Spirit any higher because of how many weaknesses she has. The cooldown, how much you can mind game her in chase because she gets really carried by survivors being bad against her because you can mind game the Spirit, fuck her up. Having her to stay still to the entire recharge. She's 110, that doesn't really do much. She can't slug. She has a lot of problems. Like, she has a lot of strength, but she has a lot of problems, and I think that makes her not quite top tier. And we're gonna move on before I piss off anyone else. Now, surprisingly enough, the top four, I never saw that, but yeah, they're killers. Like, there are killers from 2016 that got released 3 times in a row, and one of the original killers. Those are 2016 killers. We haven't got a top tier since then. That's pretty crazy. Okay, next up is Myers, obviously. Myers is the other killer in the high tier. I think he's pretty underrated in the community. I think Myers has the best snowball in the game. I think Myers becomes very, very strong. The thing about Myers is that he's very, he's stealthy, but he's not at the same time. He's going to be very much in your face with his power. He can just decide to stalk you, and you can't do shit about it. Yes, you can break line of sight, but that's not going to work every time. You drop a pallet, he can stalk you for some time. And the closer he is to you, the faster he can stalk. When at this point, he's very close to you. Myers can fake the pallet and then go straight to you, stalk you, get to the one shot, and start doing shit. The problem with Myers is, of course, that he's a very loopable killer. Sure, that is a problem, a huge problem, in fact. That is probably his only and biggest problem. Other than that, Myers is very, very strong and very scary because he comes out of nowhere and can pop tier 3 in the worst spot. He's very deadly dead zones in the basement. And one thing that puts him above Spirit, in my opinion, is how much he gains from Monitor and Abuse and Infectious Fright. Myers runs Monitor to become very stealthy, come at you, and get pretty much a free hit before you can get to a pallet. Then, once he downs you, like, he can do that again. Like, he can be a hit and run killer, or he can just, mind game unit chase, whatever. When he downs you, he gains the extra tier radius from Monitor because it increases during the chase, which means that he gains increased location from Infectious Fright. So if he launches you with Evil Within 3, he has normal terror radius, right? Which puts him at 40-meter range. If you have a Dead Rabbit, that goes to 50 meters. 50 meters detection range of knowing where everyone is. It's not aura reading, so you can't counter it. He's going to know where you are, unless you have Calm Spirit, but who uses Calm Spirit? Myers is going to fucking rape your team apart if that happens. And because it's a possibility. Myers can do this consistently, unlike the Spirit. The Spirit can say, oh, I can do stuff like that consistently as well. I'm like, yeah, but you need add-ons for it. Myers doesn't need any add-ons. Those are perks. You can use them every game. And Dead Rabbit, if you want to really, really say, like, it's not required, but if you really think that Dead Rabbit is required, it's uncommon. Spirit needs rare and above. That's how I see it. Myers also add-on us is way good. It's one of the better base kit killers in the game. Spirit base kit is unbearable. She's horrible. She really relies on the survivors fucking you up. She becomes pretty much a punish killer at this point. She doesn't have any add-ons. So that's for Myers. I think Myers is better than Spirit. Don't freaking get mad at me. I explain my points. You feel free to disagree. I know everyone is going to, but that's just how it is for me. Top tier. We have 2 killers that are extremely interchangeable. I'm gonna start with Billy because he's very easy to explain. Like, you can put Billy or the next killer, which is very obvious because you know who number 1 is. I think they're very interchangeable. Basically, Billy is very easy to explain. Basically, he's just He's just going to come in your face because he's very fast and he's going to chase you. Or he's going to one-shot you, you know. A good hillbilly bear will use the curve in a chase, so he can use his chainsaw in a chase to either break the pallets faster like Leatherface does, but also come at you really fast in a curve to way to destroy you. Angry Veins are absolutely crazy on Hillbilly, they're easy to farm, his add-ons are stupid good, the charge time is really good, the cooldown's really good, they all stack with each other. It has great perk synergy. Can use Barbecue very well, Andoran very well, Spirit Fury very well. Can use Bamboozle very well. Can use Totems very well. Pop Goes the Weasel, Blood Warden. You can pretty much use everything. Hillbilly is a very deadly killer for obvious reasons. He's really not complicated. I don't think I should really explain that much. Now, before my voice is dying, I'm gonna go to the Hag. My voice is fucking dying. Hag is up there as well because Hag has the biggest pressure in the game. Once she gets her bat and her web going, the traps pop up everywhere. She downs everyone left and right. She's everywhere at once. She can chase multiple survivors at once, unlike any other killer in the game. She's going to hit and run killer. Basically, if you try to pop her traps, like a good Hag is going to hit you, you're not injured, and you're gonna go to another trap and then get down. Basically, it's not going to work against a good Hag. How you do against a good Hag? You need to gen rush. You need to gen rush the fuck out of her, or use things like object to screw her over. Because seriously, otherwise you're not going to do anything against her. She can lock the map down. She can know where you are. Her tracking's insane. Her mobility becomes insane when she gets set up. Like, the only thing that really prevents her from being the best is because she has to set up. That setup thing really hurts her. Because when she's set up, she's pretty much like Nurse, if not even more powerful because she doesn't have a stun, she can chase multiple survivors at once, and it's extremely easy to slug as her. It's a freaking joy. She's extremely strong. And I know what I'm talking about. I think these two are definitely up there. I think they're perfectly fine. I think these two are very strong. And the best one's Nurse, because of course she is. I mean, take Hillbilly's strength and put them on Hag. You get the Nurse. Like, take the mobility and the no need to set up, put them on Hag. There you go. Or put Hag's teleport abilities. Put the fact that she can chase multiple survivors at once and has a great slug game and is impossible to loop. Put them on Hillbilly. Bam, you get the Nurse. And she also has fucking broken add-ons. I think Nurse at base kit is fine, but with add-ons she becomes truly overpowered. I think her add-ons need a nerf. She's fucking insane for obvious reasons. I think everyone that plays on PC, that is, because I don't know about you console players, apparently the Nurse is fucking garbage there. I'll believe you, but on PC she's a complete terror. She's the best killer in the game for obvious reason. Everyone says she is. Like, I don't like saying the thing is like, everyone says she's the best. That's because it's like saying that everyone thinks saying Freddy is the worst is actually true. But it kind of shows that the Nurse, like, that is the most popular thing ever. Everyone pretty much says that the Nurse is the best. Unless you are extremely woke and think the Spirit is better. In which case, you are a fucking moron. Um, so, yeah. I don't think a lot of people are going to disagree with that. I don't think I'm making enemies if I put in Nurse number 1. So that is a tier list I have right now. That's what I think. Feel free to discuss once again. Feel free to hate me. Feel free to do anything you want. I really don't mind. See you guys in the next video, and goodbye.